the re-entry journey. What would be one word to describe this journey?
Enriching.
Unapologeticness.
Elevating.
Resilience.
I say transformation.
Intentional.
Blessing.
Rebirth.
The re-entry journey, the re-entry journey, the re-entry journey, the re-entry journey. All right, man, we are back with another episode of the re-entry journey. You know what it is. I am your host, Cardell Sims, and tonight, our guest, I'm gonna have to like I was telling him earlier, I was debating on whether or not should I let him do his introduction and just go ahead and start off with the story as we normally do. But I wanted to stress the your bio because I wanted those that's going to be tuning in and see this later on, as I told you before, to see exactly everything that you have done and how a lot of us, even myself, are striving to get to the point where you at. That's why I wanted to really read your bio. Our guest tonight, though, is Mr. Travis Ricky. Welcome to the reentry, John. I'm not going to read your bio. I'm just going to follow off from it, man, because I would want to read it all. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say you're an entrepreneur, you're an advisor, a motivational speaker. You know, you invest in 25 startup companies. You know, you've been in the financial world. You know, some things happen. You go to prison, but the crazy part is when you get out of prison, the stuff that you've done. I'm amazed, man. Let's get into it, man. Tell us about yourself.
Let's get into it. No, I'm excited. I'm humbled, to be honest. I appreciate everything that you've done and that you are doing in the space. You're an innovator, so I'm grateful to be on the program tonight and just share a little bit of what I've been able to do and accomplish. No pun intended. But yeah, so I in my previous life, I was in the financial world. And at the age of 25, I really had the tiger by the tail, as they say. I had a hedge fund and I had $10 million under management. And of that $10 million, I had $3 million of it that was from the state of Arizona and investors in the state of Arizona. Let me qualify that. And the state of Arizona has an exemption, a regulation. It's a white collar statute. My exact charge is called transactions of an unregistered securities dealer or salesman. It's about this long. To boil it down really, really, really simply is the same way that marijuana legislation is happening right now across the United States. So I can purchase it in Oregon, but I can't take it to Idaho. I can purchase it in California. I can't take it to Arizona. So the state doesn't have to agree with the federal law or the federal registration, right? So I got caught up in the state versus federal, and I fought that good fight for 6 years. And over that process, I thought I had a couple small wins along the way, each way. And at one point in that journey, at one point in that process, I had sat down with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the FBI, and they gave me a clean bill of health. And so I thought that would be the end of it.
So
Unfortunately,
when you say clean bill of health, you mean they just like, all right, so we're gonna start fresh from right here.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually have a letter from an individual who worked at the FBI and a letter of recommendation on my behalf that said there was no misappropriation and they closed the case.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought that was done. I thought life had, I dodged that one, right? And so I started to pick the pieces up, and live life as I knew, continue to invest and continue to build a family. And unfortunately, 2 years after the feds closed the case, the state of Arizona came back and re-indicted me.
Oh, wow. So, that's just how they be working, boy. That's crazy. I figured that out. So 2 years after the feds closed the case, Arizona said, "Okay, the feds didn't do nothing. Now we're gonna go ahead and indict you."
Exactly. Yeah. Arizona had a statute that said there was a $99,000 threshold. Anything over $99,000 needed to be registered with the state of Arizona. And I had about 50 of those. And yeah,
So,
yeah, that one hurt.
so what was so when they came back with an indictment? What was your thought? What was the feeling like?
My initial, I'll tell you a funny story. I was new to this judicial system. I was just a kid that hustled and worked hard. I didn't have
Right.
I didn't have tickets. I didn't do drugs. I wasn't in the system. So when I was indicted, I wasn't even arrested. I had two gentlemen show up at my house. True story. Show up at my house, knock on my door, and then serve me with my indictment.
Oh no.
Yeah, Cardell, I was so
Oh,
naive.
So they
I was
ain't kicking no doors and none of
No.
that. Boom, boom.
No. I
You
was so
started.
naive.
You got
I
started.
drove downtown to I looked on there, and there was this particular individual who was in charge. We won't name those folks who had indicted me. I drove downtown to his office. True story. This is how naive I was at the time. I drove downtown, and his secretary, of course, is behind the bulletproof glass. And I said, "Hey, I want to talk to this individual. I feel like there's a misunderstanding here."
No. They can get you with
Yeah. And she said, she looked at me like I was definitely not all there mentally. And she said, no. There's definitely no misunderstanding. And there's certainly no way you're talking to this individual. And I knew it was real at that point. And so what's interesting there, I'll kind of rewind for you and for the viewers, is this charge stemmed from a transaction that was in 2006. And now fast forward, this is 2012. And so in that time, nothing, no tickets. I wasn't arrested, wasn't spoken to. So life went on for me. 6 years is a very long time.
Yeah.
And so I think where we got to, my wife and I, we got to at that point was we fought this for so long. And you've been in this situation. I know the viewers have been in this situation. It's hard to relay that to people who haven't been in those shoes. Mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, you're drained. I spent 6 years fighting this good fight every month, showing up to court proceedings, answering dockets, spending money, selling vehicles to get more money. I mean, it's just ate me alive. And so we got to this impasse with the particular prosecutor and I. And I didn't have, state representation. I had some of the best attorneys money could buy. They were fantastic. They did a great job. My first plea deal that the state gave me, brace yourself, folks, nonviolent first charge, the first plea deal was 66 years.
Wow. How they come up with 66? How they come up with 66 years?
66 years was based on how many number of class felonies I had over that threshold of $99,000, and each one carried a minimum sentence, of course. And so that was my first plea deal, was 66 years.
First time in the judicial system.
First time.
Going through the process, your lawyer comes to you and say, "Hey, man, I got a deal.
Got a deal for you."
He give it to you. You sitting there, you realize it's 66 years.
Man.
First time in the how did that hit you?
Bro, I was in the attorney's office. I broke down like a child. True story. Hit me like a ton of bricks. That was so hard for me to articulate, because just like what you had said, you see this in the movies, right? This wasn't supposed to be my life. I kept thinking for years and years and years that once I could explain to these individuals that they were just seeing this the wrong way, nobody, there was nothing sexy about my case. I used to tell people, no wire fraud, no mail fraud, no bank transfer, nothing that was sexy, no stock fraud, it wasn't cool. It literally, I was charged with transactions of an unregistered securities dealer or salesman. And so that was it, end of story. And so I got a couple prosecutors that just didn't want to let go. And so I got to the point where I sat down with our attorney and I just said, go before the judge, you, the judge, and the prosecutor, and see if we can't hammer out a deal. And they came back to me and they said, well, we want to go before the judge and we want to let the judge decide. The prosecutor's going to argue their case. We're going to argue our case, and whatever the judge decides on that day, you'll probably get probation, so I think this is our best bet.
So you went in there with what's it called? You went in there for an open plea?
Yep.
Woo!
Yep.
Oh.
Super naive. Yeah. Super naive.
Oh,
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was wild. And so I got that open plea and she laid it down on me. The judge looked right at me and said, I'm going to make an example out of you, young man. And boom, sentenced me to 2 years in the Department of Corrections, state of Arizona.
Wow.
And so literally 8 years later, there I was and sentenced.
Never thought you'd be going to prison?
Never. No, I showed up with my cell phone in my suit pocket. Nope, didn't have an opportunity.
They cuffed you right there on the spot.
Right there on the spot, yeah.
Oh, they just said, bring yourself in. No, you're going right now. Right
there. And it was interesting. So in my book that's coming out next year, I talk about this. I actually blacked out for a moment. I was there at the podium and my attorney was next to me to the right of me. I blacked out for a moment and I remember her putting her hand on my right hand. And as I came to, the reason I came to was the feeling of that handcuffed on my left wrist. It was so tight that it was cutting into my wrist. And for a moment, as I write, for a moment I was grateful because I was conscious again. Right. And no matter how many days you're removed from that handcuff experience, as you well know, you never forget the feeling, you never forget the smell, you never forget those emotions in your gut of what that feels like to be handcuffed for the first time.
Not only was you handcuffed for the first time, but you're finna go do some jail time or prison. You're going to prison.
Yeah, we went to prison. We went straight to the prison.
Oh, y'all went straight to the prison.
Yeah. They kept us in holding. We got processed for about 21 days, and then it was straight to the yard. It was interesting. So yeah, I went to the yard, and I felt like I was super fortunate, to be honest. I remember that trip to the yard. A lot of us have been there on that bus. With like 100 inmates shackled, no bathroom, no water, no food. You got half a dozen COs with shotguns.
Did y'all have the black box on the
Had the black box.
No, the story about that, they say an inmate made that box.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
An inmate made that box.
Okay. Yeah. I believe that.
They started implementing that in probably about in Missouri. They started implementing that black box probably about 2005 or 6.
Oh wow. Okay. And so there you are on the bus, and I remember looking out the window as, you're driving to the middle of nowhere, like every prison on the planet, in some terrible town in the middle of nowhere. And I looked outside. It was just like the landscape just became more and more desolate, more and more barren. And at that moment, that's how I felt, I felt broken inside. I felt empty inside. I felt barren inside. And I just had so much time to think about it. You pull up to the prison yard and, for a first timer, you've got the big concrete walls, the razor wire, the guard towers with the guns, the dogs at the bus, you're shackled, you're trying to get off. It's this whole awkward experience. I felt like the whole thing was in slow motion, so that I could actually take in what that meant. And for me, I was determined to turn that mess into a message.
And so I always say reentry starts on the inside. And that's a twofold part. It starts on the inside while you're incarcerated, and then also starts on the inside of yourself.
Yeah.
So while you're on the inside, how did you start preparing? What did you start doing to prepare yourself for your release?
Yeah, so I felt like each of my days were fortunate on the inside, to be honest. Because of my degree and my background, I was able to leave and go teach at the community college each day.
Okay.
And so as I kind of established myself at the community college, some of the professors and the educators allowed me a little bit more latitude. So I started writing, little small books. The first one was a little financial literacy book I wrote for the guys. It was called Don't Buy a Cheeseburger with a Credit Card. It was just a simple book about compound interest and how, you use a credit card every day and spend $5 on a burger. At the end of the month, all of a sudden it's $130. At the end of the year, it's all this interest that you paid if you didn't pay the card off. So I realized that these guys really enjoyed this. All I knew was finance. Mm-hmm. And so as I would start to speak on it, I got some more latitude within the community college and started teaching the business course, started teaching the financial literacy course, and started creating our own courses out there, entrepreneurship. And just it felt like every day was a day for when I was teaching, every day was a time for me to give back. And these guys, they would just eat it up. I often say in our entrepreneur course, a lot of us were entrepreneurs. We were just in the wrong industry.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right.
We all know what it's like to sell a product. We all know what it's like to hustle for customers. We all know what it's like to have receivables or money that's owed to us. Right? Like there's a business structure there that we've all done. And so when I would start to speak in those terms, in those language, it started to resonate with the guys. And so I just really built upon it and created this real cool community and this real cool environment. And I felt like every day, Monday through Friday, I would go out there. It was a real blessing, and so it like you said, that reentry for me, I honestly started to heal while I was in there. Mm. My childhood was really a traumatic childhood. I grew up with a father that was a notorious gangbanger and had a terrible heroin addiction, and was incredibly violent. And because of that, I felt like I strayed so far on this side of the road, the right side of the road, to do the quote unquote right things. But while I was in prison, I realized that I had some time to really break down my flaws, my barriers, and some of the things that made me not the best version of myself. And so to me, that reentry, I would lay in bed at night, after a visit from my wife. She'd come down every weekend and we would visit, and we would turn those visits into optimistic times. And it felt like I wasn't even incarcerated anymore. I felt like I was really had this lease on life, like this life 2.0 was given to me. And that's how I used my time inside.
They say you find yourself where you can solve your problems best. And I think that prison was that place for me, my final time going to prison.
Yeah.
Oh, you ready for release? You ready to re-enter society? Any fears? What's the time for you to come home?
No fears for me. No fears for me. I didn't know any different. I didn't know any of what I know now. Let me say that. I didn't know halfway houses. I didn't know not having a support system. I didn't know not having financial resources. I didn't know any of that. Now I know all of the obstacles and the hurdles that are placed before the individuals that are being released into the system. I was naive. My wife picked me up in the vehicle that we owned, and we went to a hotel for the weekend. My mom watched our little boy so that we could have some time alone. Honestly, I didn't know any different. I didn't know that probation officers were I'll leave it at that, right? I didn't.
They got a lot of names.
They got a lot of names. I feel like they're very jaded. I'll say that. I feel like they have some too many life experiences that allow them to have a perspective that I don't necessarily agree with. So I didn't know any of that. And so for me, when I got out, I worked my whole life. I worked since I was 15. And so for me to get a job, that was no big deal. I was just going to go start another business. Okay. But at every single time, this probation officer, because he wasn't educated, he would always shut me down. And so there I was. I found myself in that moment of not living up to my truest potential because I was afraid of what this guy was going to say or this guy was going to think, or worse yet, going back inside.
Right.
And so, you know, I would sit down with him on a monthly basis and I would say, okay, you know, Mr. So-and-so, here's my paperwork. Here's what I'm doing. And he'd say, oh, you can't have a business. He would tell me that. And I'd say, so tell me why I can't have a business. And he'd say, they don't allow it. And so I'd say very respectfully, who's they? Oh, the state. I said, okay, well, you know, I'm going to run through all the paperwork here with you. And in his office, I called the Corporation Commission, which is where you file your LLC documents, on speakerphone. And I said, hey, you know, I'm here. I'm just curious. Are felons allowed to have an LLC? And the lady on the other end of the line, she said, we don't do background checks here. We just collect filing fees, sir.
Right. That's what the money. We ain't worried about none of
That's
that.
it. That's it. And so it was like, you know, I go back home to my wife and I'd say, boy, this is scary. This man's been a probation officer longer than I've been alive. And here I am pushing the boundaries and essentially teaching him that what he's saying is incorrect. And, you know, I had, you know, a little bit of money. I had a little bit of resources. And so I was in the position to kind of push the envelope. But I can tell you 9 out of 10 of the guys that we know aren't in the position to push the envelope.
They just, yeah.
Right. And so the moment, you know, Mr. or Mrs. PO says, no, that's not possible because of their limiting beliefs, all of a sudden your ideas go out the window.
Yeah.
You don't want to, right? And so I respect it. I get it. But at the same time, I told my wife, I said, man, there's an opportunity here to really turn this narrative on its head and to really educate not only the people that are getting out, but the people that are inside who are creating these quote unquote rules. Because as you know, you've been on probation. If you've got 3 POs in a span of 3 years, all 3 of them have different rules.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Right? My 3rd PO, by the way, you'll love this. She would kick open the door in the office and she'd go, Richie, you got any drama? And I go, no. And she'd go, all right, we'll see you later. She never, ever, 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 ever checked on me. I swear to you, it's a true story. It's Googleable. If anybody wants the link, I'm not going to put people's dirty laundry out there. However, she was indicted while she was my PO because she was taking money from probationers on the rip and wasn't turning it hundreds of thousands of dollars for years. So while she was my PO, she was indicted on fraud charges in the state of Arizona. And so it was one of, it's crazy, right? And so, man, there I am, you know, all of this, this was bewildering to me. This was nutty. But when I would sit down, you know, with individuals who had been through the system 2, 3, 4, 17 times, they look at me crazy like, Travis, this is normal.
Right.
Most POs have it out for you. Most people don't want to hire you. Most people can't get an apartment, right? And so there was all of this like education for me in terms of the system. And so I would go back home every night, every time I'd encounter one of these obstacles, and I'd go, all right, what's the workaround here? What's the education process here? And so some of that stumbling block when I got out was the reason that my curriculum started. And I didn't know it at the time because I would just start to put it together. And so, for example, like I said, a lot of us were entrepreneurs. And so for us to be successful, as you well know, you're doing it, you're living it, to create your own small business requires some time and some hustle and some money and some resources and a domain name and a website and marketing, right? These things, right? And so I realized that a lot of these guys, a vast majority of them, didn't know those simple steps that I took for granted. And so there I was. I had filed dozens of LLCs at this point. I have obtained dozens of EIN numbers from the IRS. And I just took that information for granted. So I spun that narrative and I thought, all right, this is my opportunity to give back. I'm going to write a financial literacy course and I'm just going to give it away. And that was where Accomplished Ventures started. And the education opportunity, I realized in the system, there was a huge chasm between the haves and the have-nots. All of what I saw when I went in was a bunch of youngsters who were looking to some OG because he or she, he'd been through the system 5 times. And so he had the blueprint for the alleged success. And so these youngsters would take his advice only to get spun up in drama, and get recharged. It was a mess.
Mhm.
And so I thought, all right, you know what? If we could just put their minds to use while we're in here, if you've got 3, 4, 5 years to do this time, let's build you a business. And there's things that you can do and steps that you can take now, even while incarcerated, to build your life. And so I'll give you an example of like the stuff that I'm really proud of. So credit score, FICO score, FICO. A lot of people don't even know that FICO is a company. It stands for Fair Isaac and Company. It was started in California many moons ago and by 2 individuals who started this company. And now your credit score, your FICO score is dictated by a handful of factors. And so you can have a good credit score, which is usually about 620 and above, and you can have a bad credit score, which is 619 and below. And there's things that you can do to increase that credit score. That credit score may sound simple, but it's, in my opinion, crucial, because what happens is a lot of guys will get out, they'll get a job because a job will, first one that will hire them. And then their PO will say, you need to go get a car to get to your job, right? And so they don't have great credit or good credit or any credit based on how long they may have been incarcerated. And so they go to some buy here, pay here lot, and some clown gives them a 1974 Kia at $800 a month because the interest rate is through the roof because they don't have any credit.
Yeah, trust me, I know about that one, but they got me like that when I got it.
See? And I thought, okay, so that's a pain point right there that I can fix. I can teach these guys while they're inside how to obtain their credit score for free twice a year. I can get Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, all 3 of the bureaus. They can ask for their scores. They can go, okay, here's where my scores are at, Travis. And then here's the steps that you can take to improve those scores while you're incarcerated. Then when you get out, you don't have to go to the buy here, pay here lot. You can actually go get a lease on a brand new Nissan Sentra for $199 a month. That doesn't break down, that doesn't cost you $800 a month, and doesn't force you to go sell rocks again because you just want to stay out.
Right.
And to me, if I could solve that one problem with a vehicle through what I knew as financial literacy or FICO scores, to me, I thought, man, I could solve some problems. And that's where we started.
And that's very important because a lot of people, like you said, to you that's just basic regular knowledge.
Yes.
But for a lot of people don't understand that's what it's like. They don't look at the credit side of people getting out of prison. You get exactly how you explained it is exactly how it got me like that. I got out, got a job, I needed a vehicle. I went to one of them buy here, pay here, and it was a car pilot was worth $1,500. Ended up paying like $6,000 for it. When it was all said and done, all because I didn't know anything about credit. I didn't have no credit.
Yep.
There was nothing. So that was part of my reentry journey as well, was building my credit too.
Yep.
I got good credit. So that's very important.
Very important. Very important. And so those are some of the things that I'm very proud of. And so even, that's the financial literacy side. And then on the entrepreneurship course, we walk through the last thing that I want people to do that are released to get out and go to a website that offers, we'll file your LLC for you. You can go on Google, how do I set up an LLC? How do I set up a company? And there's 1,000 websites that'll pop up, and they'll all charge you thousands of dollars for this legal advice, this expert advice. And it's none of the above. And so I love when guys can realize, in order to set up an LLC, a limited liability corporation, or a company, as people term it, you can get those articles from any state that you're in right now. You can go to sos.ca.gov SOS.gov. SOS stands for Secretary of State. So if you're looking to file these LLC documents or start a company in a state, you go to the Secretary of State's website. From there, you'll download, you'll fill some things out. It's literally your name, your phone number, your email, your address, basic information. It's on your driver's license. And you can either walk it in or you can fax it in. I think in the COVID world, you can email it in now for less than $100. Less than $100. And then what you need from there is you need what's called an EIN number, an employer identification number. The employer identification number is similar to your social security number. So a company now has the LLC and an EIN, and the company can now transact business with those two pieces of legal documentation. The EIN, you can get that on the irs.gov website. It's actually termed an SS-4 form, number 4, SS4 form, and that's free. It's free. You can walk through it on the IRS website, and they will give you your EIN at the end of your 10-minute Q&A. And then from there, you go to set up your business bank account. So you've got a checking account with that you can now accept revenue legally and write checks. You've got an EIN number, so the federal government knows you set up properly. You've got an LLC, so the state recognizes that you're a legal entity. And you've done all of this on your own in about 2 hours for about $100. And I love those success stories because for that little bit of money, now you've got a pool business. Now you've got a landscape company. Now you've got a marketing company. Now you've got a dog walking business. And so guys out there are able to work their 9 to 5 and satisfy conditions of release. And they're then able to hustle their 5 to 9 and not be drained financially because I've given them the tools to go and do it themselves and not get taken advantage of. So those are a couple of things that I've taken with my background that we're super proud about, and I just love those success stories. And so along the way, you know, we've been involved in a number of prisons, and we've taught entrepreneurship in a number of institutions, and as a result, we've invested in some felon-backed, felon-owned companies. You know, guys that have had great ideas, blue-collar ideas, trucking, landscaping, vending, pools. We've invested in those companies. We've backed those guys, and they've been a great success. And so it really, I've been able to take this why me moment of incarceration, my 2 years, and really have been able to reverse engineer a platform to bring hundreds of thousands of people success.
I don't even know where to start now.
I talk too much. Stop me.
No, because the importance in is I'm sitting here thinking because I have this conversation at least 2 to 3 times a month with people I know that's getting out of prison and they want to start their business.
Yeah.
And just that step of going to, because I'm in Missouri, so going
Yep.
to the Secretary of State Missouri.gov site, just go on there and it's a walkthrough thing, and you don't even have to print it out. You can file it online now, and it's
Yeah.
sent in, and they email you your all the paperwork and it's. But I was just having this conversation before the podcast with a friend of mine. He got a photography company. He's got out of
Okay.
prison. He's been out of prison for some years. He does weddings and senior pics, he does everything. But
Okay.
I'm like, why haven't you license it up? Like, man, it's gonna cost me too much, man. I'm like, man, in Missouri, the filing fee is just $50.
There you go.
Yeah, that's now if you want the physical copies, them senior physical copies, it's gonna cost you extra $25. But if you file it and they email you your charter and everything.
Yeah.
And you just download it and go get it printed out. But he didn't know. He didn't know. I'm like, man, you're gonna answer about 6 or 7 questions.
Yep.
You know, and then I said from there you go get the SS4 form. He's like, man, that costs him. Like, no, it's free.
No.
But he didn't know. And I have these conversations like 3 times out the month because people don't have their financial understanding I had to access start business. When I was on the inside, that was part of my regimen. Like I would order business books, or I would go and look up because I was in Kansas, so they had Missouri statutes where I was at. So I would go
Okay.
look up the Missouri statute on how to start a business, and then I had a sample. I had somebody go to the website, print out the form you fill out, send it in to me, so I have like a sample form, so I
Yep.
know exactly what to do when it says number of years and what's perpetual. And I just started studying that, so I
Yeah.
knew when I get out to go right to it. I didn't know how to start it from the inside, but I knew once I got out, I knew the steps. So everything that I needed, I had it wrote down. What goes here,
Yes.
and that's how I learned how to do it. And then I had a cousin. He said, "Man, I paid $500 to get mine paperwork." I was like, "What?" And he was like,
Yes.
"Yeah." And I said, "Man, that's crazy." But I talked about 3 or 4 felons, people that's getting out of prison every month about just that simple process, and they
Yeah.
don't know. So what you're doing is a major plus, because if I would have took the time to, there's a lot of people that don't take the time to go do the research
Hmm.
to understand, and it ain't because they might not want to. You know, in prison, there's a lot of guys that is can't read it well, you know, can't write that well. So them
Yep.
going to into them, their mind is like, man, this is just too much. It's overwhelming.
Yes.
So, but for someone to take the time and teach them and show them step by step, that's a major plus, because now they know it.
Yeah.
Instead of, for me, it's like I'm not going to show you how to fish thing.
Yes. Yeah. 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 We're gonna
Yeah,
teach you how to fish for
yeah,
sure.
I'm gonna teach you how to fish. That's what that is. I'm teaching you how to do this
Yeah.
so that you will always remember. So yeah, what the work that you're doing, man, that's this everything that you're doing. I seen on the bio, it says the Tony Robbins. What does it say? The referred to as the Tony Robbins of the prison world. Man, I loved it. I said, "Oh, the Tony Robbins of the prison world," and I think that's fitting with all the work that you've done, to be able to come out and figure out a way to use what you're an expert at, finances,
Yeah.
and turn that into a outstanding reentry program, a reentry curriculum, reentry course, and get in front of all these people in prison to help them. Man,
It's been a blast, man. It's been honestly every single time that I go inside, I just feel like I'm more blessed. My cup gets filled up more than I do a service for anybody else. For me, I think I don't think I know. I know that we're supposed to be here in life to accept hard things, hardships and trials and misdeeds and some of us go through some really terrible times, some really tough times, and I empathize with that. But you focus on what you want to go towards,
mm,
and you're only your past if you're staring at it. And so when I go inside, I love teaching the courses, but more importantly, I love really indoctrinating these individuals, the residents inside, and letting them know that biography is not your destiny. You can come from a broken household. You can come from a drug addicted parent. You can come from a multiple time felon record. That biography doesn't determine your destiny. The decisions that you make on a daily basis are what determine where you go in life. And I think oftentimes the narrative in social media and in the world is that success is reserved for other people. Success is reserved for people unlike us. And I understand, the youth of today that are already in the justice system, it's hard to have this vision of massive success in yourself when you don't see it around you in your community or in your peers or in your dad, maybe. So I understand that a lot of these individuals, they don't live up to their true potential. And so when I get to go inside, I love sitting down with people and understanding, if there were no limitations, if there was no belief system that they subscribe to, what is it that they would want to do here while they lived on earth? What type of impact would they want to have? And those are the conversations and the dialogue that I'm most grateful for, because when you can really figure out an individual's purpose, and that purpose is what propels them past their pain, and they use the pain to push them to become better, that's a whole different individual. It's no longer an individual that thinks that they're a victim because of the past or because of the pain. This person now becomes relentless and unstoppable because of what they have survived. So I love that to me is the message that I like to bring inside the prison system and to the world, to be honest. And so I love that. The Tony Robbins of the prison world makes me laugh as well. But when this gal called me that, it meant a lot to me. It's a guy who's impacted millions, if not billions of people. And that's really my mission in life. I want to make sure that when I go inside, I'm delivering a bunch of value, but more importantly, that I'm changing your perspective, that I'm giving you the opportunity to see yourself through a different lens, through a lens that has unlimited potential, instead of the lens that society wanted to tell you was reserved for you.
So I got 2 questions for you. I ask these 2 questions every
Yeah.
podcast. They kind of like the wrap up questions. The first one is, somebody's getting out of prison tomorrow, and they somehow they come across this video, and what message would you leave for them?
Man, I could go off on this forever. Then I think if you're getting out tomorrow, I think there's a couple pieces of advice. The first one is people, places, and things. There's 2 roads when you get out of prison, one that leads you back to prison and one that leads you to greatness. I don't think that guys like us are destined for anything in between. Guys like us that have survived what we've survived are not comfortable in a world of mediocrity. And so people, places, and things, when you change those 3 things, you change the people that you're hanging out with, you'll level up. There's an old phrase that's called your network determines your net worth. And so when you start leveling up and hanging out with individuals and surrounding yourself with people that are winning, you'll find yourself winning. And the same goes for the places and the things. The places that got you incarcerated can no longer be the places that you visit. And the things that you focused on that got you incarcerated can no longer be the things that you focus on. So I would say my advice is to change your people, places, and things, and make sure that the people, places, and things that you're hanging around with or that you're bringing into your life are a reflection of where you want to go. In the financial world, we would always say, don't ever take financial advice from an advisor that doesn't have as much money as you do. It didn't make any sense, right?
Right.
And so I say this the same way to a guy who'd be released tomorrow. Change your people, places, and things, and it'll change your life. I think a couple other pieces of advice are accept all of the hard things that are going to come your way. A lot of people, myself included, when we get out of prison, we feel like there's a certain level of deservedness. I now deserve to go have a drink. I now deserve to go to the club. Man, I haven't done A, B, and C in X amount of years. I deserve to. And so I think there's a level where you need to calm down. And I tell people you need to slow down in order to speed up. You need to make sure that your foundation is set, because you have to be so focused, so relentless on not going back inside. You have to reverse engineer your plan to greatness. And lastly, I just want to make sure that everybody who listens to this understands that what may be on the internet is not who you are as a human. The bad things that you may have done to be incarcerated is not what defines you and your legacy. My hashtag failure shirt that I love to rock. I want to make sure that people realize that failure is only feedback. It is not an end result. Failure is a definitive moment in time, and that moment has passed. And now it's time for you to level up and understand that the only limits that you have in this life are the limits that you've created in your own mind. And so on a daily basis, I would suggest that you control your mind. If you can control your mind and you can control the narrative, literally there is nothing in this world that can stop you.
Right. Exactly. And so this journey, this
Hmm.
if you had one word to describe your journey, this journey that you're on, still going,
Yeah. Yeah.
what would that one word be and why?
Boy, this simple fulfillment.
Mm,
Fulfillment. Instant gratification is a lie. Social media is a lie.
yeah, it is.
It's not. Fulfillment is what makes you not want to go to bed at night because you're so excited. Like that's what fulfillment is. True fulfillment, both physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually. Seeking true fulfillment is what makes you absolutely calm in life. When you've uncovered your fulfilling prophecies about who you are and where you want to go and why you're here, man, nothing else will rock your boat.
All right. That was supposed to be my last question, but one more popped up.
Yeah, hit me.
I want to ask this question. How did you transition once you got out and you started doing the work that you're doing? How did you transition into getting back inside the prisons with your programs? Because I'm asking that question because I want to know because it's kind of
Hmm.
transition that I'm getting to. But I also know a lot of people in this group they're trying to make that, or their ultimate goal is to try to make that transition as well. So how
Yeah,
did you go about making that transition? How did that
yeah.
go?
Great question. So the first thing that I did was I put together the financial literacy course. It's 300 pages, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt it was the greatest financial literacy course on the planet for incarcerated citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was so confident in my content, in my material, in my videos, in my PDFs, in my quizzes. I knew if I could drop this on the desk of any deputy warden or any commissioner or any lieutenant on the planet, they would be blown away. That was the first thing that I knew I had to get that piece in place. What I found with most departments of corrections is that they hear so much talk from former inmates. So many people want to get inside. So many people want to start a program. So many people have hopes and dreams. But there really is very little follow through in our world. And I'll be totally honest with that. It's something that holds all of us back. We have the greatest of intentions, but oftentimes life gets in the way. And so I can't tell you how many times I've heard, Travis, the reason that you're in our prison, the reason that we let you in, the reason that we trusted you is because we talked to these other individuals and they said you've been there for days, weeks, months, and years, and you continue to show up. So that first course, if I could boil it down to everybody, figure out the one thing that you want to be known for. For me, it's finance. For me, it's money. Figure out that one thing you want to be known for and make sure that course absolutely rocks. You're going to want in today's world inside DOC, you have a couple opportunities. They have the tablets so they're able to look at it like on their e-readers, right? You have the ability to put it up in common areas. So make sure that you have videos. Make sure that you also have an audio file of the video, so an MP4 file for the individuals that don't have the televisions or the tablets. You want to cover all of your bases because you're going to have some jails that say, you know what, we'll print it out and hand it to them. You're going to have some prisons that say, hey, we can put it up in the common area, in the rec room. You're going to have some that say, hey, we'll put it in every cell. You'll have some that'll say, right. So just make sure you have all of your bases covered with that one program that you want to be known for and make sure it rocks. And then lastly, it always reach out to me. If you've got a dope program and you feel that confident in it and you just that next step to you is just unheard of or unknown or scary, just reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to, connect you or point you in the right direction.
Mm. And there you have it, right there. Somebody I know because I really be trying to figure out, that's where the point I'm really at is
Okay.
transitioning into, what I'm saying, building the course, building another curriculum, but this, what I'm saying, and this time making it something that I can actually really, really push to
What
get
course do you
somebody.
want to create?
It's going to be a mindset shift course.
Okay.
Because to me on my transition, that was the biggest thing. I had to change a lot of things, mindset, things that I
Hmm.
value, especially like the value part. Because
Yes.
once I learned to start changing things that I value, then I begin to um my my personal values begin to change towards different things because I had, like, prime
Yeah.
example, I had personal values when I was in the streets. The things I value, street like that's all I value. Point blank, every day I get up, sun up,
Yep.
sundown, to go sell drugs, hang on the corner with 20, 30 other people. We all live in the same life, in and out of prison. But I
Hmm.
value this life. But I had great values such as loyalty. I was loyalty to the gang, to my
Yeah.
group. I was loyal to it. I was determined. I was determined to get to a certain standard in the street life, you know.
Hmm.
But I had to learn how to transfer them same values into something positive. But I had to first value, find the things that I did value. Like I had to
Yeah.
put my family first. I had first two things I put first. People say put value God first, and I agree with that. But at first, I had to value myself first.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't value myself, I wasn't gonna value God. I wasn't gonna value my freedom. I wasn't gonna value my children. I wasn't gonna value my family. None
Yeah.
of
It's
that.
real talk. Hmm.
And because I know because I didn't value myself when I was in the streets, that's why I was putting myself in life and death situations and one thing and twice about it because I didn't value who I was, you
Hmm.
know. And so outside of that, then learning them certain values, them play a major part. Beliefs,
Yeah.
challenging certain beliefs. Like I'm a product of my environment. I had a really out of a phone conversation I had with a guy that was my co-defendant on my conspiracy case. Me and him was having a conversation. He was talking about how when he got out, what he was going to do, and he was like, "Man, I'm a product of my environment," and I just had a challenge. That was one of the beliefs I really had a challenge because I
Yeah.
started looking around at people that grew up in the same situations, circumstances that I grew up in. Mother on drugs, a father wasn't around. Some of them didn't have a mother or father. They was raised by their grandparent who possibly was on drugs, but they never took the route that I took.
Yeah.
They went to school, they educated themselves, they had a vision of what they wanted their life to be like, they worked hard, you know, and they had the right attitude that they was going to do something with their life. They didn't have to rob,
Hmm.
sell dope, gang bang, none of that. And we came from the same area. So I'm like, well, they
Yeah.
ain't the product of their environment. I ain't got to be a product of my environment. So yeah, I
Yes.
used that. So it was a lot of things. I talk about it in my book, but yes, it's a lot of things that, but most important is like the whole mindset shift and them
Okay.
things, value, perceptions, stuff like that.
I love that. I love that. So that's the course that you want to take to the inside, right?
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Have you started to put it together?
Mentally, I have. I was gonna
Okay.
start next week to start really writing it down.
Okay.
I'm the type that so I've been brainstorming, so I've been jotting it down, brainstorming.
Hmm.
I keep this little my little book with me everywhere I go, so I can
Yes.
jot it jot it down.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I've been doing. I figured next
Good.
week I was gonna start trying to put some structure with it, and
Yes,
so you know,
exactly.
the shooting the video and the content's not gonna be a problem. It's just really structuring it out.
Good. Good. And that's good advice for everybody. Just like you showed with that little book, whether it is an actual book, a binder, or whether they put it, in their phone as a note, just just put it down as it is in the real world. Come up with 10 chapters, come up with 10 ideas, 10 topics on a course, and just start every week, write one chapter. And stop thinking that it has to be perfect or it has to be well written. There's editors and proofreaders for all of that type of stuff. The content, the authentic content, you really want to start to just get out from your head and onto some, paper or, some sort of format.
Right. So, man, we appreciate you coming on, being a guest, sharing your knowledge and your expertise and the things that you're doing
Pleasure.
in the reentry community. We really appreciate you and your work here at the reentry journey. Anytime you want to come back on, do a follow up, or if you got something going on, or you can come back on, announce it in our group, or I can post it in our group, and we
Yeah.
can go from there. But I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing. Like, thank you for being a guest, and we appreciate the knowledge, especially about the course, because it's a lot of people I know that's been on here or that's in the group that's always talking about trying to make that next step in that transition. But
Happy to, man. Literally anybody in the course, or I'm sorry, anyone in the program, in the class, in the course, anybody who is looking for guidance on that next step, honestly, reach out. If I can be a resource and a value, I'd be more than happy to help.
all right, thanks a lot. Well, this is another
Appreciate you.
episode of the reentry journey. Another great story, another great journey, and you heard it, fulfillment, fulfillment. Always remember that service is king. You get, you give back. let's call it a night. It's the reentry journey. It's the end. I'm Cardell Sims. I'd like to thank Travis Ritchie for coming on. We appreciate you. And everyone
Thank
else,
you.
you have a great night.
Good night.